Okay, welcome back to the channel. Now today I'm going to do my first tier list video, and that is going to be for all of the Cosmere books that I have read, which is basically everything this year. I did not read Emperor's Soul or White Sands or some of the other Arcanum Unbounded stuff, but for the most part this is all of the Cosmere books, some of the novellas, and not some of the novellas. So let's get into my rankings of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. So I'm going to go in order of the books that I read them in, which of course I started with The Final Empire. Now I just did the standard tier list rankings. S tier is obviously like incredible, absolutely amazing book, so on and so forth, down to D. This should be lower. There may be something down here, but this is going to be obviously best up here, worst down here. Not necessarily a god-awful book, but as far as the Cosmere goes, yeah. All right, so I started off with Mistborn this year, which is still one of my favorite series that I've read all year long, and I absolutely adore The Final Empire. I loved the introduction to Vin and Elend, Sazed, Kelsier, the entire crew. The Lord Ruler was imposing and a great villain. I loved the grim, dark, crappy atmosphere of Scadrial. And I love Allomancy. It's still the best magic system that I've read all year long. And I'm a sucker for first books when they're this well done. And I'm going to pop this bad boy up in S tier because for me, this is still one of the strongest books that Sanderson has written and strongest Cosmere books. We'll get to Stormlight. Don't worry. Calm down. We'll get to Stormlight. But for me, Final Empire is always going to have a special place in my heart, and I absolutely adore Allomancy. So let's see. So Well of Ascension. Well of Ascension, I liked a lot. It had some fantastic moments. It had some dull moments. It grew and expanded on kind of like the politics of the world. Had some goofy shit going on with certain villains. It's kind of hit or miss as far as if you really enjoy the story or not. I'm going to pop this one in probably B tier. And that is simply because in the ranking of these three books, they're not all quite the same. And while I loved all three of them, I definitely liked Well of Ascension less than Final Empire. Is that recording? Cool. My audio is still going. And I liked Hero of Ages more. There are definitely some strong moments in the Well of Ascension, a lot of tension buildup, a lot of things that you're building on towards the final book. But ultimately, it is the middle book. It is the middle book. So for that reason, it's going to knock down slightly on my tier list. Which, of course, Hero of Ages, I'm going to put an A. I don't think it's quite S tier. This has a ton of fantastic moments. It's got the largest scale battles. I mean, Well of Ascension has one of the best battles of the series, in my personal opinion. Tons of stakes, a lot's going on. Basically, some people don't like Well of Ascension because a lot of it's based on the siege of Luthradel. Wow. A lot of it's based on the siege of Luthradel, which some people just find to be a little bit slow. It focuses more on the politics. I loved all of it. It's just not quite as engaging to me as Final Empire was. And Hero of Ages, I kind of slot right in between them because Hero of Ages, Vin is at her peak, Ellen's at his peak. All the villains are, I mean, the power level is insane. This has some of the largest scale and insane fights of the series. And the ending was great, and I also don't like it. And I just say that for like a personal, the way it made me feel, because I felt hollow inside after I finished this book. It was definitely a book hangover where I was just like, oh my God, like it's over. Because I already knew like Era 2 was a thing, so I knew that we were done. And it was a beautiful ending. But at the same time, we'll get to it. I'll explain some reasons why I hate this ending. But it was a great ending to the series. And I wish that we had more time with Era 1 characters because I love Mistborn Era 1. So after, you know what, let me check Goodreads. Because I think after Era 1, did I go straight into Era 2? Okay, yeah, so I did Secret History. We'll talk about it. And then Era 2. So Secret History. I know a lot of people love this. I hate Secret History, which is an absolute surprise to me and probably some others based on how much I love Mistborn, because as you can see, this revolves around Kelsier. That's all I'm going to say. It's a novella that I feel like Sanderson did not need to write. This kind of, to me, was like, you have Alien and Aliens, and then you have Ridley Scott come back and be like, hey, but I can tell Prometheus, and I can do all these other Alien movies and explain everything, and I don't like that kind of... I don't need the curtain pulled back for me. I don't need to see behind the scenes of things that are happening. That's all I'm going to say. That's probably a little bit of a spoiler in itself. I don't need any of that. And that is why I did not like this book. I felt like it... Obviously, it can't literally take away my experience that I had with Era 1 because I love it. But I feel like what this book does to just the series as a whole detracts from it, in my opinion. And I don't like what it does. And that's all I'm going to say. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about because you know what this book is about. If you haven't read it, read it at some point, probably after Era 2, because there is some spoilers for Era 2 in it, I guess. I didn't like it, okay? I don't like this kind of thing that exists. So, speaking of Era 2, Alloy of Law. So, I'm kind of lukewarm on the entirety of Era 2. It's mediocre at best, in my opinion. It's not dog shit, so I'm not putting it in the D tier. I didn't hate it, but it's just kind of boring to me, and that's really why I haven't done a full review of these. If you all want me to, I'll go back and I'll review them. I probably won't do a book-by-book thing. I'll probably do like an Era 2 review at some point, but after the high of Era 1 and absolutely loving... Why is this? Oh, you can't even see the selections. What am I doing? Well, this is going well, isn't it? This is what happens, folks. Welcome to the channel. Okay, so the highs of Era 1 could not be matched, and I knew that there was a time jump. This is about 1,000 years in the future, post-Era 1. I thought it was going to be kind of cool doing sort of like industrialized stage reel, having like a steampunk western with allomancy. It sounded really cool. I did not like it. I don't like the main character, Wax. I don't like Wayne. Wayne is Brandon Sanderson's attempt at Era 2 comedy, and for me personally, it fell flat. The first couple of times he makes jokes, I was like, okay, this guy's kind of funny. But Wayne is like that friend where he tells one good joke, and then because it got a laugh, he just keeps saying it, and saying it, and saying it, and saying it. And Wayne really loves hats, and it's like this running gag through the entire series, which we're getting a book 4, so I'm sure there's going to be more of it, where he's constantly like, almost to a Marvel level, but worse, of like quippiness during combat, where he's just like, where's my hat, Wax? And I hate it. It bugged the shit out of me. So that's why I didn't like them. Steris and the other characters that are in this book and the series are fine. They definitely grow as the series goes on, but if you don't attach to the main character of Waxilium, if you don't attach to the main character of a book, you're probably not going to enjoy the book that much. I don't like Wax whatsoever. He's boring. He's kind of a blank slate. Yeah, there's some things in his past that are cool and interesting, but him overall as a character, I did not enjoy following him as a character. I felt like this was just a much lesser version of Era 1 Mistborn. I didn't like the setting as much. I didn't end up liking the Western setting really at all. I felt like combat just wasn't as impactful. He does do some cool twists on his own magic system, combining things from Era 1 that I don't necessarily want to spoil, but it had some good ideas. I didn't enjoy it as much. I don't even think the writing was that good, to be honest. Alloy of Law was pretty boring, and we'll get to the rest of them, but this Era 2 Mistborn was just such a worse version of Era 1 that I just, after loving Era 1 so much, Era 2 was just such a step down for me, and it could really only be like a C tier for me. So without further ado, let me just do this, okay? This is all C tier for me. None of these books are terrible. I don't personally like the main characters. I know some people love them. You could argue that the characters are better written than Era 1. I don't know how anybody thinks this is a better story than Era 1. The scope is less. The villains are worse. Wax is boring. Wayne, if you think he's funny, cool. But I don't think that's enough to save this series. For me, the best parts of Era 2 are all of the callbacks to Era 1. And that's a problem. So for me, it just... when Era 1 wasn't being talked about, I just didn't care. Let's see. If I wanted to rate these... Bands of Morning is the third one, right? Am I crazy? Yeah, Bands of Morning is the third one. So if we're going like left is the best, I would do it this way. Because to me, it got slowly more interesting, and Bands of Morning was much better than Shadows of Self or Aloha, but none of it was that good. Like, Bands of Morning, by the time I got to the end of it, like, I was trying to finish it and just be done with it, because I just didn't care about Era 2. That's enough about Era 2. Next up, we have Elantris. Now, this is going to go above Mistborn Secret History, but I don't like Elantris at all. Now, I feel like I made the mistake of going Era 1, then Era 2, and then back to Elantris, because this is his first work. It definitely felt like it was his first novel. I didn't give a shit about any of the characters in this book, and this is why I keep telling people that Sanderson hasn't been like an immediate hit with me, because I loved Era 1, and then I didn't like Era 2, and then I didn't like Secret History. I didn't like Elantris, and it was just like, I'm not one of those people that is just like, everything that Sanderson does is fantastic, because I personally do not like Elantris at all. I thought it was boring. I thought the very introductory premise was cool, and then it immediately lost me. I didn't like the characters. The plot was kind of boring. I didn't care about the endless amount of religious zealotry and speeches going on with Hrathen. Serene, or Serene, however you pronounce it, was not a good character. I can't even remember the main guy's name, because he was so uninteresting. Elantris just wasn't that good. All right, Way of Kings. I'm going to put Way of Kings slotted right up here in the A tier. Now, the reason this is not an S tier for me is because if you've seen my review, or if you talked to me online about it, it took me a good 40% of the book to actually get into this. It was an incredibly slow burn foundational build to the World of Roshar and the Stormlight Archive. Now, normally that's fine. I completely understand why people love it, because I'll talk about Words of Radiance in a second. That's the one I don't have on here. I'm a dumbass. Can I do this on the fly? Can I, like, add Words of Radiance on here? No! Okay, cool, we're back. That was embarrassing. So, Way of Kings, while great, and I like it more after reading Words of Radiance for sure, because I understand all the foundation stuff that Brandon Sanderson was building towards. For me, it took so long for me to get into it through the introductory chapters that I just didn't immediately attach to it. But now I have a much bigger appreciation of it, and by the end of the book, I absolutely loved it. By the halfway point, I was fully engaged in it. By the end, I adored it. So, everything just... the Stormlight Archive is just building to be such a fantastic epic. I know everybody's pumped for Rhythm of War. I am too. Everything about Stormlight as a magic system, the world of Roshar that he's created, while completely new and original and realized, has some oddities to it as well that I'll get into with another book in just a second. But, I mean, Sanderson, this is probably his best writing to this point. I had more fun with Era 1 Mistborn than I did reading Way of Kings, but then Words of Radiance knocked it out of the park. So, Way of Kings, very solid A. For me personally, I don't love it as much as the ending of Era 1, so I would put that behind Hero of Ages, but Words of Radiance, now that it's here, is a very solid S tier, and easily the best Sanderson book that he's written, in my opinion, and that I've read of his. So, Words of Radiance built on everything that Way of Kings set up. I thought it was fantastic. It was incredibly well done, has the best character moments of pretty much any fantasy that I've read this year. I keep telling people it would be very hard for me to not put at least Dalinar and Kaladin on a top 10 fantasy characters that I've read, as well as Shallan. So the character work is fantastic. Some of the most emotional, impactful things that I've read in a fantasy book ever. The action is fantastic as well. Arguably, some of these battles are cooler than Mistborn battles. We'll see. I might argue internally with myself about that. Obviously, the well-known scene now of Kaladin of saying honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. Just perfect line. I mean, just completely encompasses what that character is about. I loved every second of Words of Radiance for real. Like, this book was fantastic. Oathbringer has been kicking ass too, but Words of Radiance, I just feel like that's going to be hard to top. Maybe he'll do it with Rhythm of War, but just everything put forth in Words of Radiance is Sanderson at his absolute best. Even beyond the main trio of characters, you have, Adolin, Renarin, Rock is hilarious. All of Bridge 4 are diverse and interesting. Zeth is getting more interesting and not just being, a faceless assassin character. So I love everything about Words of Radiance. Oh, no, I don't. There's one thing that I hate about Words of Radiance, and it's one of the goddamn interludes. So, getting into also what I said is what I don't like about Roshar and the Stormlight Archive is Lift. I know that's going to be my most downvoted review because people love Lift and they don't like me attacking her. Edge Dancer sucks, okay? It's kind of interesting in parts. I don't like Lift as a character. And remember what I said. If I don't like the characters, I'm not going to like the book. I do not like this character. She is not interesting to me. I know I'm going to have to learn to love her because Sanderson loves her. It's his favorite character to write. And she's going to be in the Stormlight Archive for the long haul. I really hope that she ages up and is a little bit more mature and interesting to listen to because this whole book did not interest me. I didn't care about Lift as a character. I don't think she's funny. I don't like her use of the word awesome. So watch this review here if you want my full thoughts on that. If you love her, that's great. I wish I had. What I don't agree with is the argument that, well, kids exist in the Stormlight Archive. Sure, kids exist in every book. They're not POV characters for a reason. It's an adult fantasy tale. I don't want to read about this 13-year-old kid talking about pancakes and buildings look like boobies and telling me how awesome she is. Like, I don't need that in my adult fantasy. That's it. That's where I'm at. Now that that mini rant is over, I actually need to step back because before Words of Radiance, I was lured into reading Warbreaker, which I'm glad I did because that's an A-tier book. I really liked Warbreaker. The magic system was pretty cool. I actually enjoyed the way that colors are used in the universe. You do get Vasher and Nightblood in this story, which are great. Lightsong is actually a hilarious character, and unlike Wayne, made me laugh several times. I really enjoyed him. I enjoyed the dynamic between Susebron and Ciri, and her character growth throughout the book. I really enjoyed Vivenna. I liked the mercenaries that were involved in this as well, Tongfa, and I keep forgetting the other guy's name. They're all great. The characters were awesome in this. It was fun. It wasn't even like a super action-packed Sanderson novel, and I did feel like the ending was kind of abrupt, so I don't know if that's going to be addressed in whatever the sequel is. I think the sequel is titled Nightblood, though, so it might be a prequel. I don't know. We'll see. But overall, Warbreaker was good. Very solid book. I'm glad I read it. And finally, okay, so I'm cheating a little bit. I want to say halfway through Oathbringer. I'm not. I'm like 500 pages into it, and this book is almost 1,300 pages long. Brandon Sanderson is a madman. But so far, I don't think a Stormlight book is ever going to dip below the A tier for me. There's going to be 10 of them. It's going to be a long series. But as of right now, Oathbringer, I'll slot in right here because, again, I'm a third of the way through. No, that's not right. 40% of the way through, whatever it is. You do the math. Oathbringer is great so far. I love that I'm going to learn more about I'm just going to pop it right here. I love learning more about Dalinar because he is one of my favorite characters of all year that I've read. And everything is interesting, building towards Rhythm of War. I'm super pumped to finish this book this month, be done, and then shit, there's 16 chapters available on Sanderson's YouTube channel for the audiobook. So I'm going to dive immediately into that and read whatever is available. Soak all of that in so that when Rhythm of War drops, I'll already be progressing through it. And I will be able to get that review out in November. If where I think Rhythm of War is going goes that direction, that will most likely be an S tier book. I totally understand if people want the entire Stormlight Archive in the S tier. Again, I say high A's for a lot of these. Again, special place in my heart for Mistborn Era 1. Words of Radiance is definitely the best book of his that I've read that I think he's ever written. And yeah. But that's going to do it for this tier list. So once again, drop in the comments down below. Yell at me for your opinions on, why I'm wrong. Yell at me if you love Lyft. Whatever you want to do. It's a free country. You're not all from the US. It's a free world. Like and subscribe as always. Hit up the Patreon and the Discord if you want to continue this conversation and support the channel. And until next time, everybody, keep reading.